Good day, viewers. Welcome to yet another episode of Dee's Take. Dees has been spending quite a lot of time talking about economic governance. But yes, economic governance is very important and it's a critical component of the new Gambia and the growth trajectory that the new Gambia needs to take. But it's always said that people who don't learn from their past will surely repeat the mistakes in the future. And a lot has happened in our past that really reflects on who we are as a people today. I'm very fortunate to be in the presence of Mr. Abdou Sara Janha. This gentleman is a giant amongst men. He has done a lot for his country. He has done a lot for the people of Africa. And I mean, when you talk about civil service and civil service reform, I think he's a lead expert in Africa to the point that you go to a country like Tanzania, they're talking about the Janha report. This was a report that they used to transform their civil service. So, if Gambia has such assets, why aren't we putting it to good use? And today I want to introduce to you, our esteemed viewers, the Gambian diaspora, the Gambians at home, Mr. Abdou Sara Janha, whose absence in the Gambia has not been conspicuous but very deliberate for reasons best known to all of us. Well, we have ushered in the new Gambia and we're getting all our diasporans to come back home. But we don't want them just to come home. We want them to leverage their expertise in building this nation. Some of them can do it in an advisory capacity. Some can do it in an operational capacity. And Mr. Abdou Sara Janha has a lot to say, and I want to welcome him. Mr. Janha, welcome to Dee's Take. It's an honor having you here.
Thank you very much. I'm honored also to participate and contribute in your program, which we are all following very assiduously personally Facebook for me. So we are quite willing to contribute what we can in making this program a success. And I hope that we will all learn from it and move forward with what we want to do with our new dispensation in the Gambia.
Mr. Janha, I was told, I was too young in the 70s, but I was told Gambia used to have a model civil service to the point that other African nations, not only West African nations, but nations around the continent used to come to us either for study tours or try to send some of our civil servants to their countries to assist in structuring their civil service. How so, or how true is that?
Well, it's very true that we had a model civil service. Of course, likely based on what we inherited from the colonial era. But the civil service was such, it was small, it was very agile, but fairly well trained, because we all have to go through the mill more or less before you get to the level of the permanent secretary or director. You have to serve for a number of years. You have to go through some kind of training also at some point in your career. I mean, I have been making my calculation that it will take a normal administrative officer coming out from university 3 years to be a senior assistant secretary.
Wow.
It will take you another 3-4 years to get to the level of principal assistant secretary. And it will take you also another 3-4 years to get to the level of permanent secretary. While you're going through the mill, you're also being rotated to have a very good appreciation of what government is. And to that extent, by the time you get to the level of permanent secretary, or get to the level where you should be promoted to the next stage, you're well grounded, both in terms of what is required by government, in terms of procedures, in terms of your readiness to move things forward, because unlike the colonial administration, we are there to push for some change. We wanted to change Gambia and make it more, what do you call it? We were much more development oriented in what we were doing, so that the Gambia will become more productive. Its people will be well served by their government. But more importantly, we all respected one thing very much, was the rule of law. Yes, from the president down, this was really one of the cardinal principles of the government. The rule of law must be respected. The wishes of the people were totally respected as well. We were just servants. In fact, at one point we used to sign all our letters, "Your obedient servant."
Oh.
But that has changed. Eventually that was changed. But the idea was that the civil servant is there to serve the government and by extension the public.
Quite right, because it's we the people constitute government, and not all of us can sit in government offices. Therefore, by proxy, we have a civil service. Yes, it's true. You had a lean and responsive civil service in the lead on after independence, all the way to 70s and run up to the ERP 80s. And what we've realized then that the civil service was not the employer of first resort, but rather the employer of last resort. That's why the numbers were not big, and people who came into the civil service went through the mill, and they had a multi-sectoral approach to public administration, meaning they understood government, because most of the people who became deputy permanent secretary and permanent secretary at one point were either commissioners or they were attached in different districts or not municipalities, but different areas of the country, administrative areas of the country. Therefore, this gave our administrators a bird's eye view of what government is, what Gambia is all about, and a feel for them to be so close to the people they are serving. And the people they were serving didn't only reside in Banjul and the environs of Banjul, but as far as Koina. So going to the provinces gave these people an opportunity to understand the needs of the people living up country during the rainy season, during the dry season, how their kids had problems going to school, accessing healthcare and other things. Therefore, I think we have missed that. And the lead on, some people will tell you that, look, the civil service started having issues in the early 90s or late 80s, and others will tell you, no, it started after the run-up to 94, after Janha. What's your take on that?
Well, the civil service, the model we had was very good and was very suitable for the period we are talking about, up to 1994. That model would have changed after 1994 because we would, for want of a better word, we have graduated from this ERP. We were trying to move to the next stage. And that would have even called for greater reliance on a very competent civil service who are ready to lead the change that we envisaged. We thought that Gambia would have gone to the next stage and we would have found a niche in the global economic scene and hang on to it, and we were going to be really an entrepreneur.
Well, we have done that. We've successfully done that. If you look at the fact that in the 80s, Gambia went through an ERP, and we successfully got ourselves out of the ERP, and we started to grow. And our growth was based more on re-export trade and the entrepreneur system, whereby we will serve countries like Mali.
That's right.
And for me, that growth has been arrested by the events of 1994. And what has happened 94 to, let's say, 2016, we saw the outflow or the flight of human resource out of Gambia, especially from the public sector, because they became an endangered species.
Of course.
So how do you think that the civil service got destroyed 94 to 2016?
Yeah, the civil service, the model we had was we have a permanent civil service. In that once you are in there, as long as you're performing and doing your work, you are expected to stay imposed. The discipline was there, but it was done through, it was institutionalized. Public servant we knew who was supposed to be impartial, who was supposed to be objective, was supposed to be honest, but in return it was supposed to hold to a permanent position in the civil service and can only be removed if he has done something wrong, and then it has to go through a process. We've lost that. So do you have a civil servant who was no longer protected by the system? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends on the whims of individuals. He can come to work today and then he's kicked out the same day. So that person cannot sit down and think.
Yeah.
He cannot initiate anything. He cannot use his initiative.
Yeah.
We were able to do that to a large extent when we were civil servants under the PPP regime.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were protected.
Yeah.
We were not answerable. We were answerable to ministers and so forth, but they cannot just arbitrarily dismiss.
So basically, the civil service had a civil servant then had tenure of office.
That's right.
Meaning they were well protected by the laws that govern the civil service, and they had a system through the PSC, Public Service Commission, who will look into issues and arbitration or anything that needs to be done in terms of addressing or redressing issues going through that. And basically, this system faltered. And 1994 brought about strong men and weak institutions. And this weak institution brought about mediocrity. And mediocrity became the norm in the new dispensation. We lost a lot of people who went out, got international jobs, or got frustrated and joined the private sector locally.
Yeah.
Gambia cannot develop if we don't have a civil service that's responsive, a civil service that's highly competent, and a civil service that are visionary to make sure that they understand the Gambia development blueprint, where Gambia needs to go and how they can drive the processes of transformation, reform, and development. So your advice to this new government in terms of reconstituting the civil service?
Well, my advice is limited by the fact that I don't know what actually exists within the civil service. But I can say that they are faced with an unprecedented challenge, the government, because they have to deal with the 22 years of destruction meted by the Janha regime on the system. I said there was, as you have indicated, many very good, competent people had to leave the civil service. So there was no time for succession planning, which was, it's a cycle. Some people come in and others go out and they take over. There is continuity. We've lost that. We had this 22 years break. So I don't know what we are going to do as a nation, but I think we need to start looking at what is needed to make the civil service function and deliver. Because now, of all times, we need a capable, competent civil service to ensure that, one, we have peace and security in the country. We've established the rule of law. So we need security sector reform very quickly. We need competent economists who will make sure that our fiscal and monetary policies are right and implemented, so that we have some kind of fiscal discipline. We need that. So these two are major. We need to have capable people to implement whatever program government would come up with. Now, that capacity has to be generated. And if it exists or doesn't exist, we look at what is required to make it functional. Because the growth rate, Gambia needs a growth rate of 5 to 7% with the population growth rate of 2.8 to make any impact on poverty.
Yes.
So we have to have people who are agents of change ready to move the country forward and work with the private sector and other segments of the economy so that things can move. Because if there is no growth in the system, the impact on the life of people will be very negligible. We also need people who can, we need a civil service that is well trained.
Yes.
Yes. And we should give them the tools to move things forward. And the way we even used to do things have to change.
Yes.
Yes. Now everybody who is in a position of responsibility must deliver, and they have to deliver on the basis of commissioning and contracting. You cannot just come and sit down and say, I'm the permanent secretary, and you are not challenged to deliver.
Yes.
Yes. So I think we need to look at the civil service in that sense that now more than ever we are faced with a huge challenge that can only be surmounted by a very capable civil service.
And I totally agree with what you've said, because in public administration, there's a new philosophy called NPM, the New Public Management Approach. In the new public management approach, we believe that we need the toolkits needed by these people to make sure that they deliver the deliverables expected. But the first critical thing is we need institutional memory to drive the civil service. And that institutional memory has been wiped out by Jammeh's will and power to dismiss people as and when he wants to. This government over the past 22 years have lost nothing less than 600,000 years of experience. If you look at the number of people and the accumulated experience they've had, and the system just losing it. That's one. And secondly, I've realized that this whole cabinet don't have an economist in their midst. Gambia is a developing country, mind you. We cannot develop without having the development practitioners. And the development practitioners are led by economists. So there's no economist sitting in the cabinet today. And we're talking about an economic development for the Gambia. We're talking about a reform agenda for the Gambia. How can this reform agenda move without having requisite human resource in the area of, economics to make sure we drive this agenda?
Yeah, I think to start with, I think what we need really is to build up capacity at the level of the civil service.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure that we have a number of trained economists in the country.
Yes.
I don't know whether they're in the civil service at this point in time. But the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs should have at its core a planning unit or a planning division that is comprised of trained economists who really would be in a position to guide the planning to develop plans for the country. Of course, with the contribution of implementing ministries, or we used to call them economic ministries.
Yes.
That can be done. And we had a critical body of economists who were doing this.
At MEPIT.
At MEPIT.
Yes.
And eventually they were also part of the Ministry of Economic Affairs. In addition to economists, we also need project managers.
Yes.
People who the civil servant has to be equipped to implement programs.
Yes.
We need also managers who are able to commission and contract and monitor.
M&E, monitoring and evaluation.
So we need highly competent and highly skilled people who can do all three. So you have to be an agent of change. That means you have to have development oriented. You have to have skill or competence in one area, either in economics or in statistics or in whatever. But you have to be very competent in that area. You also have to have this, what do I call it, mentality, the makeup, the desire to serve your country.
Very fundamental.
Very fundamental. Yes. So you have a competent person, but he's not really using that competence to do what he's supposed to do. So I mean,
well, I think the biggest problem this civil service or the Gambia has faced is indiscipline.
Yes.
And the indiscipline, is a consequence of the frustration that the civil servant went through. And the civil servant went through this frustration because of Jammeh's ironclad and also, secondly, remuneration packaging. I mean, if you look at the civil service, let's be fair with people who are working there today. I mean, the best and the brightest of Gambians have left the civil service, either for greener pastures outside or to the private sector locally. So, the civil service is left with people who are good, but would not have been the first choice for some positions. Therefore, civil service restructuring, civil service reorganization, and also civil service training and equipping is something that this government should be very mindful of. But like the gentleman said, we need change agents and change drivers. People who will do the change and people who will drive the change process. So I think your advice to government is very pertinent, and I do hope that the policymakers are listening, because here, sitting in front of me, is someone who has contributed significantly to the growth trajectory of this country. He has positively contributed towards the socio-economic development of this country, and he has a lot to say. And these are the Gambians that we need to listen to. And I do hope that we also start celebrating Gambians. You go to Senegal, Amadou Mahtar Mbow is someone that Senegalese look up to. Why? He served his time and he diligently contributed towards national development. He's not only a doyen, but he's someone that they listen to. So the likes of Mr. Abdou Sara Janha and the late Ayo Langley, if he was still around, he should have been someone that we should listen to. And there's still the likes of Sara Janha around, and we should not just allow them to sit on the wayside. They have a role to play in the new Gambia. Like the Wolof who say, Mak Jarna Bai Ci Rew. These people should be advising government at the highest levels. So, Mr. Janha, I do hope that you'll be coming more frequently or often to the Gambia, because we need you here and we need your expertise.
Yeah, I want to come home. In fact, at my age, it's better that I come back home and stay here and, if necessary, contribute. But you've hit a point that it needs to be underlined. So working for the government should be worthwhile.
Yes.
Yes. Worthwhile not only in terms of remuneration, but in terms of what you can achieve. You set objectives and achieve them. So any young man will want to contribute to the development, or lady or woman, to the development of the country. And to do that, we have to create the situation that will enable him to contribute. Absolutely. So it has to be worthwhile, and the environment has to be created to allow him to work and contribute. And that can only be done, again, by the leadership. The leadership has to be provided, and the people have to be protected to do their work. But in protecting them, they have to contribute based on objectives. This is what we want. This is what the country needs. You are in charge of the Ministry of Education. These are the objectives we agree between you and the ministry. How at the end of the year, we should be able to appraise you and come up with.
Yeah, it's performance-based where people have KPIs that they have to meet. But Mr. Janha, I was told that you were very instrumental in terms of the change or the civil service reform in Tanzania.
Yes.
And your report today is very famous to the point that they call it the Janha report in Tanzania. It's a reference. And it baffles me. If you can do it for Tanzania, why not Gambia?
Well, as you said, many of us left the Gambia during the past 22 years, and we had to survive by one way or the other. So I was a consultant contacted by the NDP to do this job in Tanzania. I've done it also in Zimbabwe.
Wow.
I've also was part of a study on civil service productivity, pay and remuneration. And we are still available to support and advise the people who are now leading the civil service if they want to. We are available, and there are many people like me, my age group, who are still around. And as you say, if we do what the Senegalese do, they can use us. They can use us.
Gambia, this is a shame. An utter shame for that matter. A critical mass of wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience that we are not tapping into. And the unfortunate thing is, we're quick to go and get a consultant from Europe who doesn't even understand the Gambian dynamics nor the Gambian situation. And we allow these people to direct our programs and policies. The Jamaicans said one thing: dance a yard before you dance abroad. Before you do out, do at home. We have the requisite skill set, we have the requisite toolkit domestically to drive the Gambian agenda. Gambia for Gambians and by Gambians. I am talking to my government, and I do hope my government is listening, and I do hope the relevant authorities are listening. Look, we will not develop this country if we're not inward looking. And by being inward looking, we look at the resources we have in country to fix our problem. Gambian solutions to Gambian problems. And it starts by calling people like Mr. Janha. This is not a marketing ploy for Mr. Janha. Mr. Janha has done his bit, and he's now a retired gentleman enjoying his retirement. But we need him. The new Gambia needs to talk to people like this to go forward. So, Mr. Janha, in closing, what do you have to tell the new Gambia, and what do you think that you can give us as an advice? Because they all of us will say, Mak jarna bay ci rew te linga jonkon di gis ñun ñu ngi taxaw te mënuñ ko gis. So, I think you have something that you can tell us that will really at least bear fruition to where we want to go as a country and as a people.
Yes. I've been here for 3 weeks, and I've been talking to many, many people. And I'm happy to say that Gambians are beginning to smile,
Yes.
which is a big achievement by itself, considering where we're coming from. But we need to move things forward to the next stage. And that will require government to come up with a vision that will indicate to all of us where we want the Gambia to be in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. And I'm so, that is in the offing, because looking at this opening of Parliament, the statement delivered by the President, it would appear that the ground is very prepared for that.
Yes.
And so we're waiting for that. Whenever we have a plan and a vision in place, I think we should move forward with extraordinary strength and dedication.
Yes.
And discipline. I think the word discipline which you have used is very important.
Absolutely.
And we've done that before. For the public enterprise system, we created the contract system, and it worked. A similar thing will be done should be done in the civil service, and we can use New Zealand example.
Yes.
New Zealand example. Again, is based on commissioning and contracting.
Yes.
Nobody should be made comfortable. From now on, we should just move and achieve our objectives. I think that's where we need to go.
So basically, the civil servant should carry his or her own weight.
That's right.
There should be no dead weight in the system, and we shouldn't allow inefficiency. But like he said, the Gambia has once again moved from the frowning coast to the smiling coast. But that's not all we want. We just don't want to be alive. We want to be able to transform. You look at Singapore and Gambia. They've gotten independence literally the same time. A country with no resources, and look at where they are today. It's human resource that got them there. Gambia can do the same, provided we have the leadership that believe in the people they're leading, and also set a strategic vision for the people and have good monitoring and evaluation to make sure that that is achieved. So civil service reform and civil service reorganization is a must. And Mr. Janha, I really want to thank you for your time, and Gambians are pleased to have you back at home. Welcome home.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.